The UK is suffering massive poverty and inequality. Let's just look at some facts. 14.3 million people are in poverty, of which 4.3 million are children. 3.8 million people in the UK are destitute, of which 1 million are children. 7.6 million people are on the NHS waiting list. 2.8 million people are signed off work, long-term sick. I could continue. This is devastating. The country is in crisis, yet we seem to be living in denial about it. Why isn't more being done to address these problems? These facts are completely unacceptable in a civilized society. Another really important fact here is that the UK is not a poor country. UK wealth in 2019 was £15.2 trillion. UK GDP in 2019 was £2.2 trillion. So this means that the total wealth in the UK, the value of all assets held by people in the UK, is around 7 times the total national annual income of the country. The UK could easily afford to eradicate poverty and destitution. It could easily afford to eradicate the NHS waiting list. There are people suffering, yet we don't seem to be doing anything about it. How do we live with this? Most people surely aren't living in denial. We see evidence of poverty around us. We experience failing public services and infrastructure. So what justifications do we accept that make it okay for such suffering to continue? As an exercise, I tried to think of all the possible justifications that people might employ, and these are some of the examples that I came up with. Minimal government intervention produces the best economic outcome. Welfare programs create dependency and distort incentives. Individuals are responsible for their own economic outcomes. Success is due to hard work and talent. Failure is due to personal shortcomings or lack of effort. Governments should leave it to charities to help relieve poverty. The world is a tough place. Everyone is out for themselves. It's dog eat dog and we just have to accept it. Anyone can make it if they work hard. The poor just need to work harder. People who could work are signed off sick. We can't afford more money for the NHS or welfare policies. We live in a country with equal opportunities. Now, if you're satisfied with one or more of these justifications, then I do respect your opinion, but I completely disagree with you. I personally don't believe that any of these statements are correct. Some may have an element of truth in them. Some people may become dependent on the welfare system. Some people may even abuse it. It's possible that some people who are signed off work sick possibly could work. However, to the extent that there's any truth in any of these statements, it's a minority that abuse the system. Meanwhile, many people are suffering. And I'm not comfortable that our government isn't more ambitious in trying to improve this situation. There are no easy answers here, but eradication of poverty, ensuring that everyone has access to the basic essentials, for me, this should be the starting point. If we don't have that, this just isn't good enough. I think that as a society, we've too readily come to accept that a large proportion of the population is suffering. We seem to be moving towards more of a US-style system than a European one. The US is one of the richest countries in the world, and it's possible to live a great life there. But you only need to visit a US city and you'll see many people who do not have access to that great life. The European culture, I think, is much more caring. There's a general belief that there should be a strong safety net for those falling into more difficult times. My gut feeling is that the average British person isn't happy with the level of poverty in the UK, isn't happy with underfunding of the health service, schools, national infrastructure, etc. My gut feeling is that the country could get behind a plan to eradicate these problems if we only had politicians bold enough to set out a vision of how we might do this. Unfortunately, most of our current crop of politicians are not bold at all, are too ready to accept that these problems will continue. And for me, this is just not good enough. I hope you found this information useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.